This video is going to be about how to solve word problems using the Pythagorean Theorem. This is an application of quadratic equations. So let me write that down up here. This is an application of solving quadratic equations. So, what is the Pythagorean Theorem? And that is the main idea here of this section. So the Pythagorean Theorem specifically talks about when we have a right triangle. So let's draw a right triangle. A right triangle looks like this. A right triangle always has a right angle. We have what we call two legs, and then we have the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's opposite of the right angle. So what does the Pythagorean Theorem say? The Pythagorean Theorem says that if you take a leg and you square it, and you add it to the other leg and you square that, that's equal to the hypotenuse squared. Now, a lot of people don't remember it this way. They remember it like this. If you call the leg A and this leg B and the hypotenuse C, you get A squared plus B squared equals C squared. That would be the Pythagorean Theorem. So, what is going to be our strategy for these problems? Our strategy is always going to be, so step one, I always think it's a good idea to draw a right triangle. It really helps you visualize what's going on. Step two, you're going to create a variable. Typically we let x equal the side of the triangle we know least about. Usually it's the one mentioned last. Step three, fill in all sides of the picture using information from the problem. Step four, most important step, use the Pythagorean Theorem to write an equation. Step five, simplify and solve. Step six. Now, by the way, when you solve a quadratic equation, you get two answers, and so let me just say throw out answers that don't make sense. Okay. What do I mean by don't make sense? Well, you can't have negative answers, for example, because there's no such thing as a negative length. That's what I mean by doesn't make sense. Step six, answer the question. And don't forget your units. Units are always a big deal in word problems, and especially when we're talking about length. Okay, so let's start with our first example already written here. It says, a piece of wood is in the shape of a right triangle. One leg is 7 inches longer than the other, and the hypotenuse is 9 inches longer than the shortest side. Find the lengths of the sides of the piece of wood. Well, let's start with drawing a picture. It says it's in the shape of a right triangle, so here it is. Now it says one leg is 7 inches longer than the other, so we're going to let x equal the shorter leg. So there's x. Now since the other leg is 7 inches longer than this one, the other one's going to be x plus 7. And then the hypotenuse is 9 inches longer than the shortest side. So the hypotenuse is going to be x plus 9. Okay, so we're done with step 3. Step 4, use the Pythagorean Theorem. Notice that we don't have any equation here we can solve until we use the Pythagorean Theorem. We know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or x plus 7 squared plus x squared equals x plus 9 squared. From here we have to simplify and solve, but let's be really careful. To do x plus 7 squared, I have to do x plus 7 times x plus 7. I can't just square both terms. I end up with x squared plus 7x plus 7x plus 49, using FOIL, plus another x squared here, equals, this one is x plus 9 times x plus 9. I end up with x squared plus 9x plus 9x plus 81. We're still not done simplifying. We need to combine our like terms. On the left we have x squared and x squared. That gives us 2x squared plus 14x plus 49. On the right side we have x squared plus 18x plus 81. Let's get everything over to the left side, because when we solve quadratics, this is how we have to do it. Subtract x squared minus 18x and minus 81. We end up with x squared minus 4x, and we have 49 minus 81, that's negative 32, equals 0. So we have here a quadratic, and so remember how we solve quadratic equations, we have to factor the left side. Okay? So two things that multiply to negative 32 and add to negative 4 are negative 6 and positive 2. So we write x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 32. And do grouping here. We get x times x minus 6 plus 2 times, let's see, did I do this right? Oh, sorry about that. Wrong two numbers. Wrong two numbers. It's negative 8 and positive 4. X squared minus 8x plus 4x minus 32 equals 0. And we're going to do this one by grouping. This one will work. X times x minus 8 plus 4 times x minus 8 equals 0. Or x minus 8 times x plus 4 equals 0. So my two solutions are, if x minus 8 is 0, then that means x is 8. And if x plus 4 is 0, then that means x is negative 4. But remember, since x represents the length of a side, the answer can't be negative, so we throw that answer out. That means x equals 8 is the answer to one of the sides. But they want all the sides, so we have to answer the question. So if this one is 8, then this one is 8 plus 7, which is 15, and this one is 8 plus 9, which is 17. So the sides are 8 inches, 15 inches, and 17 inches. And that would be the solution. Okay? Let's try another problem. It's going to be number 2. It says the hypotenuse of a right triangle is 1 inch longer than the longer leg. The shorter leg measures 7 inches less than the longer leg. Find the measure of the longer leg. Now notice they keep saying longer leg at the end. So that's the last mentioned one. We're going to let x equal the length of the longer leg. So here's our triangle. So this is going to be x. Now it says the hypotenuse is 1 inch longer than this, so it's going to be x plus 1. And then it says the shorter leg is 7 inches less than this, so this is going to be x minus 7. So far so good. So now we need to do the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem says that x squared plus x minus 7 squared equals x plus 1 squared. Again, we have to simplify and solve. So x squared plus, remember this one is x minus 7 times x minus 7. We're left with x squared minus 7x minus 7x plus 49. And we have over here, this one is x plus 1, x plus 1. So this is x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1. We end up with 2x squared minus 14x plus 49 on the left. On the right we have x squared plus 2x plus 1. Move everything to the left side. We're left with x squared minus 16x plus 48 equals 0. Now, we're looking for two things that multiply to 48 and add to negative 16. Now, those two things are negative 4 and negative 12. So this is going to be x squared minus 4x negative 8. Let's make this one the 8 and this one the 12. Negative 12x plus 48. So we're going to do by grouping. First group we can pull out an x, we get x minus 8. Second group we can pull out a negative 12, we get something seems wrong here. Oh, I said 8 and 4, but then I wrote down 8 and 12. I apologize, everybody. So this guy factors as x minus, let me just go ahead and write the factorization. X minus 4 times x minus 12 equals 0. So that's better. So again, I apologize. I'm a human being too. Set these both equal to 0. We end up getting x equals 4 and x equals 12. We get two answers. And they're both positive, but the question is, do they both make sense? Notice that x equals 4, although it's a positive number, if I were to put that in here, then that would mean that this one would be 4 minus 7, which is negative 3, and that is no good, because you can't have a negative length. So x equals 4 cannot exist. So what does that mean? That means x equals 12 is my only answer. So 12 inches. The longest leg is 12 inches long. Again, the reason we knew it wasn't the other one is because if you put x equals 4 there, 4 minus 7 would be negative 3, and that would give you a negative length for the other leg. So this is how we know that that cannot be the answer. Okay, let's look at the third problem. A wire is attached to the top of a pole from the nearby ground. The wire is 4 feet longer than the pole, and the distance from the wire on the ground to the bottom of the pole is 4 feet less than the height of the pole. Find the length of the wire and the height of the pole. Okay, this is a confusing question, right? Things are worded very strangely. Notice that we keep seeing the height of the pole, the height of the pole, the height of the pole. Notice that's mentioned last in every sentence. So, I'm going to say, let x equal the height of the pole. So let's draw a picture. Here's our pole, and there's the ground, and then it says the wire is attached to the top of the pole from the nearby ground. So I'm going to attach it right here. Notice that this does form a right angle because the pole, we're assuming, goes straight up and down. Now this would be x right here. This is the length of the pole. It says the wire is 4 feet longer than the pole, so that means this is going to be x plus 4. Finally, we have to look at the distance. It says the distance from the wire on the ground to the bottom of the pole. That's talking about this right here. So that distance is 4 feet less than the height of the pole. 4 less than the height of the pole. Well, the height of the pole is x, so this is 4 less than that, x minus 4. Now, we're finally ready to write down the Pythagorean theorem. We know by the Pythagorean theorem that x minus 4 squared plus x squared is equal to x plus 4 squared. So we need to simplify and solve. So this is x minus 4 times x minus 4 plus x squared equals x plus 4 times x plus 4. If we use FOIL, we get x squared minus 4x plus 16 plus x squared equals, and then x squared plus 4x plus 16. Combine our like terms, we end up with 2x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. Let's move everything to the left side. We move everything to the left side, we end up getting x squared minus 16x. On the right side, we end up with 0. Factor out an x, we end up with x minus 16 equals 0. Now we set each factor equal to 0. We end up getting x equals 0 and x minus 16 equals 0. For this one, we end up with x equals 16. Now, which answer makes sense? Well, we know the height of the pole can't be 0, right? It can't be 0 feet long, so we cross that answer out. So that means x has to equal 16. So the pole is 16 feet long. What else? It also wants us to find the length of the wire. Remember, the wire is 4 longer, right? If this is 16, then this is 16 plus 4, which is 20. So the wire is 20 feet long. And that is it. I hope this has been helpful. I apologize for a few little mistakes, but hopefully that wasn't enough to keep this from making sense. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon.